Sometimes the biggest accomplishment is finding yourself. We're going to talk about a quote from a lady named Luisa Fernando Cesario. And she said, sometimes the biggest accomplishment in life is to find yourself. Now, read that fast, and it sounds like a nice Instagram caption. So sit with it for more than 5 seconds, and it gets uncomfortable because it means all the certificates, the job titles, the relationships, the version of you that shows up on time and holds it together, none of that is accomplishment. Finding out who you are actually are underneath it is. Now, that's what we're getting into today. Not a soft, vague, just be yourself way, in a real way. A few weeks ago, Newsweek ran a piece by a woman named Naomi Crooks. She's 44, based in London, a nutritionist and a former personal trainer. And she wrote about something most people expect to be a turning point story, getting diagnosed with autism as an adult, except her story refused to behave. Here's the setup. For most of her adult life, she quietly believed the problem was her, too sensitive, too intense, burning out every 6 months in jobs she couldn't make fit, no matter how hard she reshaped herself around them. She had the degree, the resume, the effort, and she still felt, in her words, like a shoe that never quite fit. In 2020, she finally got the autism diagnosis. And here's the part that makes this story worth telling. It didn't fix anything. She expected relief, grief, a clean before and after. What she got instead was a support group she felt out of place in, and people in her life responding with everything from, you don't look autistic, to, that's not an excuse. The validation she spent years chasing didn't show up just because she finally had the right word for herself. So she stopped talking about it for years. What actually changed things wasn't the label. It was going underneath that label, understanding why she processed demands differently and why being around people cost her more energy than it seemed to cost everyone else, and why consistency was a harder climb for her specifically. The diagnosis told her where she'd been. It didn't tell her how to get anywhere new. That took a different work entirely. She's now the sole caregiver for both of her parents who have dementia. Her life did not get any simpler, but she says it got clear. And out of all of that, the years of misdiagnosis, the burnout, the caregiving, she built something, an app for nervous system regulation and identity work for neurodivergent people and beyond. Her line was that nothing changes until your identity does, and your identity can't change while your nervous system is running on survival mode. Now, here's why I keep coming back to that story. We treat self-understanding like an event, like there's a moment, a diagnosis, a breakup, a birthday, a breakdown, where the truth gets handed to you and your life reorganizes itself around it. Naomi got the label and waited for her life to catch up to it. It didn't. And she's not wrong that it didn't. That's actually the honest version of how this works. I think about identity the way I was trained to think about a person walking through my office door. You don't hand someone a diagnosis, a label, or a plan and assume that the work is done. The label is information. It's not the intervention. The real work is about what happens after, going into the actual mechanics of a person's life and asking what's making this hard, specifically for this person, in this body, and in these conditions. Most of us are doing this with ourselves right now and don't realize it. We get the insight from therapy, from a book, from a hard conversation, and we treat that insight itself as the finish line. I finally get why I do that. Okay, and then what? Naomi could have stopped at the diagnosis. She had every reason to. Instead, she kept going and asked what the mechanism actually was underneath the name of it. There's also something here about where we go looking for permission to be who we are. Naomi spent years waiting for the diagnosis to make other people take her seriously. It didn't. People still said, you don't look autistic, still dismissed it, still made her defend something that was never up for debate. That's not a flaw in her story. That's what happens almost every time you wait for external validation to catch up to the internal truth. It usually doesn't arrive on schedule, and sometimes it doesn't arrive at all. Self-determination isn't a slogan. It's the recognition that you are the expert on your own life, and no system, no person, no label, not even a correct one, is going to hand you permission to be exactly who you are. You have to take that. Now, here's the part that most people skip. We love the idea of finding yourself because it sounds like arriving somewhere, like there's a version of you waiting for you at the end of work, fully formed, and once you find her, you're done. That's not what this is. Naomi didn't find herself and then everything got easy. Her life got harder in some ways. She's caregiving for two parents with dementia now and on top of everything else. But it got clearer. Those are two different things, and we conflate them constantly. Finding yourself doesn't mean your circumstances improve. It means you stop lying to yourself about what your circumstances actually require of you. That's a much less comfortable definition, and it's the true one. And here's the uncomfortable part underneath the uncomfortable part. Now, sometimes the people around you will not come with you. Naomi named this directly. She stopped telling people about her diagnosis for years because of how they responded. When you find yourself, some relationships, jobs, and identities you've built your life around stop fitting, and there is no guarantee the people in your life will applaud the new version. Some will minimize it, some will need you to go back to being easier to explain. That's not a sign that you did it wrong. That's actually a sign that you did it right and now it's visible. Most personal development content wants you to believe finding yourself is a warm, glowing process. Sometimes it's just clarity delivered cold with no one clapping. Now, here's what I want you to do and not think about it. Do. Take out a piece of paper tonight. Write down one belief you currently hold about yourself that you inherited from someone else's reaction to you. A teacher, a parent, an ex, a boss. Something like, I'm too much. I'm not disciplined. I'm the difficult one. Pick one. Then write down the actual mechanism underneath it, not the label, the mechanism, not I'm lazy, but the real thing. Maybe you need more recovery time after social contact than the people around you do. Maybe your brain needs the task broken into smaller pieces before you can start. Get specific and get honest. Then write one sentence about what you do differently this week if you organized your life around the mechanism instead of the label. One sentence. One action. Do that one thing before this week is out. Now that's it. That's the whole exercise. Label to mechanism to action. Do it tonight. Now that's the episode. Finding yourself isn't the soft part of the journey. It's often the hardest part, and nobody's guaranteed to clap when you get there. Do it anyways. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next episode.